Welcome to the Satori Lifestyle Satori Masters Podcast, the ultimate resource for ambitious, hardworking school owners that want to get their business and their life to the next level. My name is Dave Kovar. I'm a lifetime martial artist, business owner, speaker, and author. My goal is to empower listeners with the knowledge and the tools they need to break through barriers and really get their business and their life to the next level. Thanks for watching and enjoy. Welcome to the Satori Lifestyle Satori Masters Podcast. I'm your host, Dave Kovar. And today I'm going to do a solo podcast. I'm going to talk about what we call the Core 24. And what these are the routines and the behaviors that we want to see out of ourselves and our teammates when it comes to our business. And it's really, a lot of these were inherent in our culture already, but probably about a year and a half ago, we kind of sat down and said, what can we talk about every week? What theme can we really discuss with our team and try to really live with that theme for a week, and then find another one the following week. And it's really based on Ben Franklin's 13 virtues. Now, these are not the same as Ben Franklin's 13 virtues, but the concept, many of you guys might be familiar with, of course, you all know who Ben Franklin is, but I think he was 22 years old. He just graduated from college, and he was in the process of deciding how he could live an ultimate life. And I'm paraphrasing a little bit here, but basically what he did is he came up with 12 virtues, and he decided, I'm going to live with these 12 virtues, and if I can do that, I'm going to live a great life. And what happened is that he would live with one of these virtues for a week, and then he would try to add on the next one. He'd focus on one. It might be thrift or reverence or silence, industry, these kind of things. And then what he found was he could really focus on like 3 virtues, and then when he added a 4th one, something had to drop off, right? And so when he got done with those 12, he'd start over again. And then what happened when he was later on in his later 20s, he was accused more than one time apparently of being a little arrogant, so he added the 13th virtue, which is humility. And if you do the math, 13 virtues, he goes through that 4 times, and that's 52 weeks, and you start over. And so the whole idea is his whole life he did that. And that's how we've kind of structured our curriculum. It's kind of a rotating curriculum, right? So it cycles through. And so we did the same thing with kind of behaviors we want to have, we want to live with, and also we want to see our team live with. And I want to take you through them kind of a high level. So after a lot of work, we came up with, and by the way, we originally had like 60 different of these behaviors, and we narrowed it down to these 24. And it's still a lot. You could probably cut it down a little bit more, but let me tell you how we use this. We go through this with every staff meeting we have every week. We will do one of these behaviors, and then when we're done with those 24, then we start over again. And basically, because we take a couple of weeks that we have very few classes, we start every year. We go through them all every year twice. So the very first one is create deep connections. That's number 1. And it has to do with understanding that if our students are emotionally connected to us, first off, it's the right thing to do, but they're going to train with us longer and stay with our team. When you go to battle for your team and you have a strong connection, they're more likely to go battle for you. It's the right thing to do. It also serves your business well. So it's a great place to start. And when you have strong connections and your intentions are honorable, it doesn't necessarily make you a lot of money this month, but it's going to allow for you to have a very successful career, because the only way to do good business is to do good business. The second one is do the right thing. Always. And man, that's hard to do. I tell you what, though, sometimes you wonder what should I do here? Then if you can, get logical and think, what is the right thing to do? Then that's going to help guide you. I remember years ago, we had a situation where we had to get our attorney involved with some advice as to how to handle the situation. And I remember there was one legal way to do it, and then there was one more of a moral way to do it. And we want to do legally the right thing, but it morally didn't feel right. And I remember I expected our attorney to say, no, you got to do it the legal way. And I remember him looking at me and saying, Dave, at the end of the day, if you're not sure, do the right thing. And then it became very clear. Right. The third one is create a tone of friendliness and warmth. In the subcategory there is we're the friendliest place in town. So the whole idea, especially in this day and age when maybe, especially post-COVID, some businesses aren't as maybe customer service oriented. Yesterday, I was in a lounge coming back from a long trip to Germany. I did a seminar and a river cruise. It was amazing. I was in an airport lounge, and it was amazing how the people that were there, you could tell they didn't really want to be there. And I've been to other ones where people are over the top friendly, right? So the importance of we're the friendliest place in town, and if we can create with every phone call, even emails and text. How many of you guys got a text that you couldn't quite tell if they were angry or not with you, right? Because the words meant something, but based on if you're in a bad mood, you might interpret the same thing differently, right? So what can you do even with your texts and emails to make sure that you are creating a tone of friendliness and warmth? The fourth one is make quality personal. And that's taking pride in everything that you touch. You all know someone that does this and how much you appreciate that, right? So what can you do to make quality personal? Like I know with making our students look the best they possibly can. I take that very personal, right? It's something that I want to see happen because it's the right thing to do, and I know it's in their best interest. The next one, this is really hard to do. And by the way, these behaviors, I'm not saying that I do them all the time. I aspire to do them, and I can't say our team always does every one, but I think we do a pretty good job of aspiring to them. And the fifth one is deliver legendary customer service. You do the little things as well as the big things that blow people away. Remember, the difference between ordinary and extraordinary is that one word, extra, right? So it's amazing how far just going the extra mile can be, right? As you've all had someone that did a little extra thing for you. Like I know there's certain grocery stores where, like, for example, you go into Whole Foods and you ask where something is, they will walk you over to the place. They won't just point. And by the way, I've had people within Whole Foods that walked me over and they kind of were like, oh man, I got to stock these counters, and they're doing it, but they're doing it begrudgingly. And then I've had other people that did that and you could tell their spirit was present. Big difference, right? So deliver legendary customer service and do it with the right intention. Number 6 is be relentless about response time. And I don't know what it is, but something about the martial arts world, and especially kind of the classic head instructor, and I fit into that category. Sometimes I can be a little delayed in my response, but in this day and age, especially when it comes to marketing your business, people expect quick response. And so what can you do to make sure that you get back to people as quickly as possible? And because it's the right thing to do. And it doesn't mean you have to come up with an answer, but if someone asks you a question, can you say, hey, that's a great question, let me get back to you on that, right? Even that it works. Number 7, be fanatical about cleanliness. Okay. Remember, cleanliness breeds professionalism. Think about it. You go into a business and the place is dirty and the person's got their feet up eating, there's a cheeseburger wrapper over in the corner. It doesn't give you the right impression, right? So go out of your way to be fanatical about cleanliness. Number 8, honor commitments. This would be another way. It's a quote that I've been using. My word is law, or I keep my commitments to myself and others. How important it is that if we say we're going to do something, that we get it done when we say we're going to get it done, or if we don't get it, if we're not able to, that we let everyone know where we are in the process. But what happens when you honor your commitments? What you're going to do, one of two things. You're going to make less commitments because you can't follow through with it. That's one. And number 2 is you're going to end up getting more done because you've committed to it. And one of the things, like for me, I exercise every day. I don't, because if I think, man, I'm going to exercise 3 or 4 days a week, well, every morning when I wake up, should I do it today or not? But if I don't, I exercise every day unless I have an excuse not to. And by the way, I do miss, but here's the difference. When in my mindset, if I exercise every day when I occasionally miss, it's not the end of the world, because when I'm 100% committed to it, it's easier for me to get back on track than if I try to exercise every day. The next one is practice blameless problem solving. This is super important. How often have I been guilty of something goes wrong and I want to let everybody else know that it wasn't me, it was that guy, or it's not my fault. The directions weren't written right, or something like that. And so what happens, you tend to spend all that time pointing the finger and coming up with excuses versus actually trying to solve the problem. So super important. There's an issue. Instead of pointing the finger and trying to figure out who was guilty of making it happen, what can you do to solve the problem? And of course, if it turns out there's someone on your team that is constantly involved in having it not go right, then you might have to revisit that person, right? And how it works out. But at the end of the day, you're in the heat of the moment, figure it out. Don't worry about who caused the problem, figure it out. This next one, I think this is one of the core ones that makes every school I know successful. This is one of those ones you have to have, and that is I only teach great classes, never just good ones. Remember, if you're in the professional martial arts, if you run a martial arts school for either a hobby or a profession, what you have is what happens when you're on the mat. And by the way, you can certainly, I've walked off the mat plenty of times thinking, yeah, I did a pretty good job in that class. Just like I've walked off the mat thinking, what the heck happened today, right? But my intention is to, when I step out on the floor, is to teach a great class. We're on 12. We're already almost halfway through. 12 is get clear on expectations. And this is one that I need to do a better job of. I'm very good at saying a lot of words, but at the end of it, maybe not being really clear on what I want to expect out of somebody. And I think, how many times have I been mad at a teammate or a family member because they couldn't read my mind as to what I wanted them to do, right? So a great line that I actually learned from my business partner is, after a conversation, is okay, what did you just hear me say? Right? Actually make sure that you have the person kind of give you back what their analysis or their interpretation of what you said. And it's amazing how often they heard something different. And this offers a lot of clarity. Number 13, let your passion shine through. Show and share your passion of our mission. Remember, it's so important to understand that the human mind is easily influenced by anything spoken with conviction. And when you believe in what you're doing, it shows through the people around you. That's contagious, man. That's contagious. And by the way, we have to do a lot to guard that passion. That's why it's so important that you stay connected to your mission, the purpose as to why you're doing that. That's going to keep that passion stronger. And when people get burned out, it's usually because they lost sight of their vision. And if you can keep your vision really clear, it's going to keep that passion strong. Number 14, this comes from Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and that is seek first to understand and then to be understood. I honestly believe that that's the best bit of advice I've ever heard in regards to dealing with someone that maybe has a different viewpoint on a discussion, on a point. It could be, if you're a salesperson, the more you know about what the person's looking for in a sale, the easier you are to adjust your sale, right? If you're a fighter, the more you know about what your opponent likes to do, you better prepare for them, right? And that's a good reason. But another reason is, when you really sincerely try to hear someone else's viewpoint, it makes them more receptive to yours. And the third point about seek first to understand and then to be understood is, sometimes when you're really trying to see someone else's viewpoint, you'll go, wow, I never thought of it that way. And you end up with a more likely to come up with a solution. All right, we're already on 15. And this is a great one to aspire to. And it is, I remain calm even in challenging situations. And emotional composure doesn't mean that you're emotionless. It just means that you're in control. And one of my favorite quotes comes from a gentleman named Ben Zoma. Ben Zoma was a first century sage, and he had a series of questions that if you could answer these questions correctly, you could live the ultimate life. And one of them was, who is a mighty person? And the answer to that is one who has control of their emotions and can make friends of their enemies. All right. So I'll tell you what, I recently back from a trip. I flew from Zurich to Sacramento, and I had, before we had about an hour and a half taxi drive ride to the airport. We had 3 flights and layovers and really tight connections. You guys, if you've traveled much, you know what I'm talking about that. And those type of opportunities give me a chance to practice being calm. And that's the first thing when I look and our connections really, we actually had to run from one flight to the other, and we got there right on last call. And my ability to I'm better. I still working on my ability to be able to go, don't worry, man, you're going to make it, be calm. That if I can do it in little things, then I can do it in big things. So when you have this mindset, all the everyday adversities that come up are a chance for you to develop that mental toughness. Number 16, go the extra mile. And it seems obvious, right? But when you do that little extra bit of service for your teammates or your clientele customer, in most cases, every now and then someone won't remember, but in most cases they will notice, and it makes them way more appreciative of you and your business. Number 17, create win-win solutions. One of the things that is so important is that if you're in a negotiating strategy where it's a lose-win or a win-lose, and what I mean by that is you find a way to negotiate where you won and they lost, man, that does not make for a good relationship, and that's usually going to come back to bite you later on. The flip side is if you're too like eager to please somebody else, and so you let them win and you take a loss because of it. After a while, you're going to have a little bit of resentment for either yourself for your actions or for the other person. And so the key thing is, as I believe Stephen Covey said, win-win or no deal. How can you make sure that when you're in negotiating with somebody that you both sides win? And what happens is that when this is the case, this creates a long-term solution. So what does that mean for us? Yeah, charge a fair price, but give maximum value when you do that. Don't be too cheap. Okay, but also make sure that whatever you're charging for your tuition, you are delivering that and more. Next one, number 18, and this go for any business when it comes to either customers or personnel, and that is always be recruiting. Okay. How many times have I seen in our business a situation where somebody goes, yeah, I've got so many students right now, I don't know how to process them. I'm not going to worry about advertising. And what happens? They quit marketing, they quit recruiting, and 3 months later, all of a sudden they've got this gap of new members and they're all of a sudden going, oh my goodness. And it takes them 2 or 3 months to get that momentum going again. So you're always looking for opportunities to tell your story. And same thing with your team. Even if you've got plenty of staff members, something's going to come up and you're going to find yourself in need of a staff member. So regardless of how you're staffed, always be recruiting new staff members. Always be on the lookout for them. Number 19, follow up on everything. This is one that probably is one of my weaker ones. I tend to be a really good starter, then I get sidetracked, right? I go off to the next project and oh yeah, that's right, I was supposed to follow up on this. So this is something I'm working really hard on it. And so the bottom line is make sure that you have follow-up dates for this. Completing things is super important. Getting them started is the first step, right? But then following through until completion is the next step. Number 20, be process oriented. What the heck does that mean? It's so often, I know one of my favorite quotes is take care of the days and the years take care of themselves. It's like, it's important to have long-term goals, of course, right? But you get caught up in the long-term goals, you forget about what to do right now. And I know for me, if I can just focus on every day being as productive as possible at work, being as kind in my relationships as I can be, making sure I get my workout, make sure I eat right, make sure I continue to learn and grow and train. If I do that every day, if I'm process oriented, then all of a sudden a week goes by and I've made a lot of progress, right? Because I was focusing on the thing at hand. And I think what brings people out of joy, brings stress and pain and depression is fear of the future or regret from the past. And if I just simply focus on the process at hand, the task at hand to do my best ability, what happens? Not a lot feels better than a good, productive day. And regardless of how challenging you are in your life is at any given moment, when you have a good day to where you did everything in your powers to make progress, when you lay your head down that night, it feels pretty good, right? And that's always a place that you can focus on. And don't over worry about the what ifs. All right, number 21, Kaizen. Kaizen, of course, means continuous improvement. Be relentless about improvement. So what's so important is one of the things that we've all been guilty of as well. That's the way we've always done it, right? Well, I'll tell you what, if that's your mindset, you will be stuck in the past. So like, for example, for us with our curriculum, we do black belt tests every 3 times a year. And after every black belt test, we will sit down with our master's council, which is our senior, our head instructor, our high level professionals. And we'll sit down and think, okay, what did the students do well? And how can we be better? And if there's 1 or 2 students that were weak on a particular area, that's kind of on them. But if we see a general area where, man, nobody looked very good in sparring this cycle, well, then we have to look at our process. We have to look at how can we improve that area of our training. And if you do that, what happens is you're constantly trying to get better. Then you're going to make progress. And what's the quote goes, in order to be a champion, you have to fight like a challenger. And once you stop trying to become better, you quit being good. So you're constantly getting up every morning and trying to improve. Next one, number 22, is assume positive intent. This is super important. You all know somebody that is easily offended, right? And they always, whatever happens, they assume the person on the other end was doing something to irritate them, or they did it intentionally, which is most of the time not the case, right? So the whole idea
is if you assume positive intent, you will find yourself less frustrated and less mad at the people around you. The bottom line is that, like, for example, let's just say someone cuts you off in traffic. It's very easy to let that get to you, right? But if instead you tell yourself a different story, wow, they must be in a real hurry. Maybe they have to race home to get their son to bring him to the doctor, or who knows. In other words, you don't assume they did it to irritate you. Uh, then you're better off. Remember, there's a quote that goes like this: being angry at other people is like drinking poison hoping they get sick, right? So just assume the best for the people around you, give them the benefit of the doubt, and it's going to make you enjoy your life a little bit more. And then when you find out that's not actually the case, you can adjust. But more often than not, we often misinterpret somebody else's actions, and it causes unnecessary pain and grief on our side. Number 23, keep things fun, right? The bottom line is it's fun to be around fun people, right? And whatever it is that you're doing, how can you make the process enjoyable for yourself and your team? Final one, and that is catch them doing things right. What the heck does that mean? This is a great mantra as a parent, as a coworker, wherever you're at, is that people around you, when you see them do something right, catch them, notice that, comment on it. Because first off, everybody deserves a pat on the back, right? Everybody appreciates a pat on the back, a job well done. And number two, when you do that on a regular basis, and then maybe when someone has a bit of an issue and they don't handle things as well as they could have, it's going to be an easier pill to swallow when you give them some feedback as to how they can improve, because you haven't been nitpicking them all the time. So anyway, we those are our core 24, and when we get done with those, we start back over again. And we always try, when we talk about one of these, we try to get feedback from our team as to an application of that, or when they've seen that work, or maybe when they didn't do it as well as they could have. And so the whole intention here is that we do this a couple times a year, and hopefully as a team and as individuals, we're getting better. So that's our core 24. I hope you found them valuable. I wish you the best of success in your endeavors, and look forward to having you listen to another podcast. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll talk to you next time.
Thank you for tuning in today to our podcast. I hope you found it valuable and inspirational. To stay connected, please subscribe to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you go for your podcasts. If you enjoyed today's show, please give us a 5-star review. And we really sincerely would appreciate some feedback. Your feedback helps us to create high-quality content that will help others in the future. If you'd like to follow me, you can go to Dave Kovar on Facebook or Hanshi Dave Kovar on Instagram. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on next episode.